In project management, dealing with outside vendors, well, it can feel like you're trying to navigate pure chaos, right? But what if there was a way to bring order to that chaos, to really take control? That's exactly what we're digging into today. We're not just talking about buying stuff. We're talking about building a formal, rock-solid governance structure. And the number one tool for that is the Procurement Management Plan. And let's be clear, this is not some dusty, bureaucratic document. It's a powerful tool for leadership that can turn all that potential chaos into total, predictable control.
So let's kick things off with a big question, and I want you to be really honest with yourself here. On your projects, is procurement a well-oiled strategy, or is it just a constant source of chaos and frustrating delays? Because for way too many projects, it's definitely the latter. When managers treat procurement like it's somebody else's problem, they are basically paving a direct path to budget overruns and blown deadlines. So this whole explainer is about how we flip that script.
And that flip, it begins right here, in our first section. Moving from chaos to control. The key to this whole thing is a really critical mindset shift. It's about stop seeing procurement as just a series of simple one-off transactions and start viewing it as a core strategic function of management.
And this slide, man, it lays out those two mindsets perfectly. Over on the left, you've got that transactional view. It's reactive, it's isolated. Honestly, it's a guaranteed recipe for delays. But on the right, that's the managerial view, which is absolutely central to the PMP framework. This sees procurement as a core performance domain, an integrated system that demands proactive governance. This isn't the path to delays, this is your path to control.
Okay, so what's the tool that actually lets us make this shift from chaos to control? Well, it's the Procurement Management Plan. The best way to think about it is as the official how-to guide for every single buying activity on your project. It sets the rules of the game. It provides the procedures for everything. I mean everything, from the very first email you send to a vendor all the way to that final signature that closes the contract.
All right, let's move on and see how this thing builds out into a complete governance roadmap. We're going to break down the plan's logic and, maybe most importantly, how it integrates with everything else happening on your project. Think of it as the bridge between your high-level project goals and the nitty-gritty execution of contracts.
This visual really drives home the plan's role. See, it's not some standalone document sitting on a shelf. It's the central hub of an integrated control system. It has to connect directly to your schedule, to your quality plan, to your risk management plan. And why? To prevent that dreaded silo effect, where the procurement team buys something that the engineering team isn't ready for and the whole project grinds to a halt.
So, the whole point, the core principle, is this: consistency through governance. This governance acts like a bridge over the really turbulent waters of legal and financial risk. You just can't wing it when there are millions of dollars in legally binding contracts on the line. You need a documented, consistent set of procedures to make sure every single transaction is fair, compliant, and actually optimized for project value.
And this is exactly how we get proactive instead of being reactive all the time. The plan forces us to define real-world lead times based on what the marketplace can actually deliver. It makes us establish objective, transparent selection criteria before we even start looking at vendors. And it requires us to document all our procedures. These steps are what prevent that kind of ad hoc, seat-of-your-pants decision-making that always leads to disputes and project disasters.
Okay, enough theory. Let's make this real. Section 3 is all about putting the plan into action. We're going to use our ongoing case study, that high-rise office tower, to see exactly how this governance framework gets applied to a really complex electrical contract.
Just look at how clear this makes everything in our high-rise example. The plan explicitly spells out who does what. The project manager, they're on the hook for the technical side, making sure the wiring is up to code. The procurement department, they handle the money and the paperwork, invoices, amendments, you name it. And the vendor, Beta Systems, they have their own clear responsibility, weekly progress reporting. With this level of clarity, there's no confusion. There's just accountability. And this is how you actually measure success. The plan doesn't just say, hey, be safe. It establishes specific, quantifiable performance metrics. For our vendor, Beta Systems, a key metric is 98% adherence to safety codes. This makes vendor oversight totally objective. It's black and white. You either meet the number or you don't. Simple as that.
I love this quote because it just perfectly captures what the plan is all about. It really is the instruction manual for your relationship with the vendor. So when a problem pops up, and it will, a late delivery, a surprise change request, you don't have to argue or wonder what to do. You just open the manual and follow the procedures that you and the vendor already agreed to.
All right, for all of you studying for the PMP exam, listen up. This next section is absolutely critical.
we're going to tackle a super common point of confusion, the difference between the Procurement Management Plan, the procurement strategy, and the Statement of Work, or SOW. Nailing this distinction is a must.
This table breaks it all down beautifully. The plan is all about governance. It answers the question, how will we manage the entire process? The strategy is about tactics. It answers, what is our path for this specific buy? And the SOW? That's the detailed technical scope. It answers, what exactly are we buying? Remember that flow. The plan governs everything. The SOW fulfills the strategy.
So in our final section, we're going to focus on mastering the controls. Because look, a plan is totally useless if you don't have a way to enforce it. We'll look at the advanced mechanisms you use to maintain that control all the way through the procurement lifecycle: metrics, audits, and formal closure.
First up, metrics. Just like we saw in the case study, these are the quantifiable measures of a seller's performance. They are not vague goals. They're hard numbers, like the percentage of on-time deliveries or the number of quality defects found. They give you a completely objective way to track and control how your vendor is doing.
Next, let's talk about procurement audits. An audit is not about pointing fingers or placing blame. It's a structured, professional review of the whole process to figure out what went right and what went wrong. The goal here is continuous improvement, capturing those valuable lessons learned not just for your project, but for the entire organization.
And finally, closure protocols. Seriously, this is so important. A formal closure process is what ensures everything is truly done. All the work has been accepted, every last payment has been made, and all claims are settled. This is what prevents those loose ends that can turn into legal and financial nightmares long after everyone thought the project was over.
Okay, let's bring it all together with this powerful 8-point governance checklist. These are the absolute core pieces of any good plan. First, you've got to nail down roles and responsibilities. 2, use standardized documents. 3, figure out realistic lead times. 4, integrate your risk management. 5, set objective selection criteria. 6, define clear performance metrics. 7, have a formal change management process. And 8, nail down your closure procedures. If you master these 8 elements, your project's procurement stops being just a collection of random contracts and becomes a unified, integrated system for delivering value. This is your roadmap from chaos to strategic control.